All right, welcome back to County Connection. For our final segment, we're going to be talking about the Summit Cove Loop Project, a project in Summit Cove to increase the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists who are traveling through the neighborhood. And with me are Kate Berg from the Summit County Planning Department and Don Lineweber from Civil Insight, an engineer on the project. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so let's kick this off by just giving kind of a high-level overview of what's involved with this project. Kate, can you provide that for us?
Yeah, so the scope of the project is to add bicycle and pedestrian lanes around the main loop within the Summit Cove neighborhood, which is basically all of Cove Boulevard and Summit Drive. And it's about a 2.5-mile loop. What we're looking at doing is adding bicycle and pedestrian lanes around the entire loop on both sides of the roadway, so in both directions.
Great. And so what's the genesis of this project? How did it come to be? Why did the county see the need for this project? The idea really first originated with the Snake River Master Plan. And the master plan was last updated in 2010. Okay. And so the transportation element of that plan talks about a need for creating safer conditions for pedestrians and bicyclists throughout the Summit Cove neighborhood. So there are some policies in that plan that talk about adding these improvements, and it's actually a high priority implementation strategy. The plan indicates that we should pursue this within 5 years, which actually will be by 2015, and that's what we're looking at doing. All right.
And then we also had a walkability report done in 2009, and we had a gentleman come out by the name of Dan Burden and look at the neighborhood and give us some tips for improving safety on Cove Boulevard and in the school zone. And then over the years, we've also had a lot of residents from Summit Cove contact us and request that the county look at improving safety for bicyclists and pedestrians throughout the neighborhood.
Right, so there's really been a lot of momentum behind this from the community over the years through these public processes and just through individual residents of Summit Cove, which is one of our largest residential neighborhoods, is that right?
Yeah, it is. It is. There's about 1,600 full-time year-round residents within the neighborhood. And then there's also a large number of second homes as well. So that population increases when second homes are occupied.
Right, and Summit Cove Elementary School, which is at the back of Summit Cove, is its school population has been rising.
Yeah, it's about 300 students currently. So we've got a neighborhood commercial center at the entrance to the neighborhood, and then we've got an elementary school at the back of the neighborhood.
All right, and a lot of those kids, depending on the weather and time of year and that kind of thing, are using their feet or their bicycle to get to and from school.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so, Don, why don't you tell us a little bit about the existing conditions out there and some of the factors that that make it not optimal for walking and riding and kind of get the vehicle speeds a little bit faster than we'd like to see?
In general, the existing conditions, not a lot of roadway striping to define where different users are supposed to be traveling. So what we want to do with the proposed is to add some edge striping to define that rec lane a little better. In general, throughout the Cove, the existing asphalt varies from 24 to 25 feet in width, a little wider around Cove Boulevard at the entrance to the subdivision. But in general, that 24 feet of asphalt width will be widened so that we can accommodate these extra lanes.
Okay, and one of the things that I think is interesting about the kind of work that you guys do are kind of these subconscious cues that drivers get from the visual environment that may cause them to go faster. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is the width of the road. And what we've got right now is a condition where we have a fairly wide road with absolutely no striping, and there's a lot of straight shots where you just get the perception that you have a lot of room to go fast, and there really, like Don said, isn't really any striping to show you where you should be within that asphalt area, so you have the perception that you have the entire asphalt area to drive your car. And so people really start going fairly quickly through some of those areas.
I mean, clocking speeds of up to 50 miles an hour in certain sections.
Wow.
So we've got fast speeds in a residential area right now. And what we're looking at doing through striping is actually striping the drive lanes to create a sense of narrowing and to create a space that is clearly designated for pedestrians and bicyclists, so that people understand that they don't have the whole road to drive their car. They have a defined area to drive their car within, and then they can see where the other users are going to be within the roadway.
Right. Okay. And so you guys have spent a lot of time out there with your eyes on the ground, and you've divided this into 3 chunks based on kind of the particular challenges in certain areas. Can you talk a little bit about these different zones?
Sure. The road project is sort of naturally divided itself into 3 sections because each section has unique characteristics. The first section, which we're referring to as Section A, is the entrance of the neighborhood through the intersection with Royal Coachman Boulevard. And that's the widest section of road. It's where we have those medians, and we have a really wide stretch of asphalt that's about 56 feet wide.
Wow.
We've got the Summit Stage bus stop coming in there. That's where the neighborhood commercial center is. It's also where most of the larger multifamily residential buildings are. So we've got a lot of density there, residential density, commercial density, wide road, a lot of uses, bus stop. And so in that area, we've got tons of asphalt to work with. We're not looking at widening the road at all. We're just looking at striping movements within the existing asphalt to try to narrow the drive lanes, slow people down, and create a really large buffered bike lane on both sides. And we're actually looking at some colorizing of the rec lane in certain key areas, like near the bus stop, where we really want the bike lane to stand out so people are very aware of it as they move through those higher speed sections.
Right. And so an example that we have in the county of some colorized asphalt is on the Dam Road. It won't necessarily be that same color,
right?
But it definitely creates again those visual cues for a driver, oh, I'm not supposed to be there.
Yes. And in the case of Summit Cove, the colorizing will be green.
Okay.
Instead of red, but same idea.
Uh-huh. Okay, so moving through the cove, what are our next sections?
So the next section is from Royal Coachman moving into the elementary school zone. And really, you know, as we move into the back of the neighborhood, the improvements are going to narrow. And our goal with the overall project is to minimize widening of asphalt as much as possible. Mm-hmm. The project is going to be kept entirely within the right-of-way, and in most cases kept within the existing road bench. So really what we're looking at doing is widening the asphalt just very minimally, like 3 to 4 feet of widening, to create enough room to have travel lanes that are striped in at between 10 and 11 feet, depending on the area, and then to have lanes for bicyclists and pedestrians on both sides of the road that will be a minimum of 4 feet wide. They'll be a little wider in certain areas. There'll be a larger buffer between the drive lane and the bike lane in certain areas. But that condition is going to be carried around the rest of the loop. So narrowing the drive lanes and adding the minimum 4 foot lanes on both sides as we go around past the school and then out Summit Drive.
Which is our third
Which
section.
is the third section. So the second section, Section B, does include the school zone. Mm-hmm. And right now, the school zone, we haven't finalized a design. We're still in the preliminary design phase for the entire project, but we're really trying to take a hard look at the school zone and really talk to the school district and try to figure out what makes the most sense for improving the safety in that school zone. The goal with the school zone is to slow people down. So what we're looking at doing is framing the school zone and making it so that people are very aware when they've entered the school zone, and trying to get vehicle speeds to drop to 20 miles an hour within the entire school zone. And then we're also trying to do a better job really separating the different modes of arrival at the school. So really looking at all the different modes that need to move through the school zone: school buses, parent vehicles, teachers, and everyone driving a car, as well as bicyclists and pedestrians, both cyclists and pedestrians coming to and from school, as well as through travel. Through the school zone. So we've got a lot of conflicting uses within a really narrow roadway, and right now none of the movements are striped. It's really unclear as to where everybody's supposed to be, and so we've been working with the school district to try to look at some solutions and try to identify different improvements. We're going to have some pretty beefed up improvements within the school zone. That's one area we really want to focus on. So we might have, we're looking at having colorized bike lanes, bike and pedestrian lanes through the school zone, maybe a larger buffered lane through there as well, and those types of things to really make that school zone as safe as possible and make it integrate as best as we can between the road and the actual school. So we're looking at where there might be connections needed on the school's property, like sidewalk connections, to get people safely from the roadway into the appropriate school entrances.
Right, so I can see this being a huge benefit for kids and their parents as they're really in a busy area with a lot going on, and and certainly there's some great just quality of life benefits as well as healthy benefits to them being able to safely get to school walking or on their bikes.
Yes, definitely.
Great. So we talked about the 3 sections. So tentatively, what are we thinking about the timeline of implementation for these 3 sections?
We're looking at doing a phased construction project. The goal is to begin phase 1 construction in 2015. So phase 1 would be this coming summer, 2015. Okay. And then we're looking at probably having 3 phases. It may end up being more or less, but likely 3 phases. So we would be building out, in a 3-year phased cycle, 2015, 16, and 17.
And then, as you're looking for input, you mentioned we're still in preliminary phases. Those are one of the questions you're kind of throwing out to folks too, is that timeline and how it might impact them.
Yes. So we are going to be hosting an open house at Summit Cove Elementary School on December 10th, and we're going to be looking for the community's input on really what at this stage is just our conceptual design ideas, and letting people know what it is we're attempting to do, generally what the ideas are right now, and getting public input on the design that we can then take into account as we finalize the design moving forward. And the goal is to have a final design for phase 1 to begin in 2015, and then we can use the next couple years to really work through the next 2 sequences.
Great. And so this open house, it's one thing to kind of sit around and talk about a project like this, or to read about it on our website, but I think some of these face-to-face discussions are so much more valuable. Don, what are some of the details that people can kind of get into and talk with you about at the event?
Well, one of the things we've tried to do over the last month and a half is visit Summit Cove, look in detail at these different sections, but no one's going to have as much of those anecdotal direction for us as the people who live there every day. And so we don't really know what the input might be. That's why we want to open it up to, there's no bad ideas on this project at this point. We want to hear everyone's opinion as to what's going to work, what won't work, and get feedback from everybody. We're just trying to gather as much information at this point as we can. So in my opinion, there's no bad input at this point.
Great. And so people will be able to move around at various stations, look at some pretty detailed maps, and get in there and look at the really at individual intersections and kind of say, here's where I travel and that kind of thing. Is that right?
Yes. Like I said, our design at this stage of the game is just a preliminary design, but we've done a good job, trying to illustrate our ideas. So what we're thinking is, at the open house, people can come, really get an idea as to what the project is going to look like, what the specific sections are going to look like, and then have an opportunity to ask questions and have an opportunity to give us their thoughts.
and, write down their comments, mark up, we can mark up plans. Oh, I think a crosswalk would make more sense in this location because really everyone's coming from here and going to here, so this is a more logical place to cross. That kind of information is really valuable for us. So come, learn about the project, look at the designs, ask your questions, give us your comments, and then we can really use that to make the design work best for the community, who are ultimately going to be the people using the roadways.
Right, fabulous. And then the details on that open house again, time, location.
It's going to be December 10th, which is a Wednesday. It's going to be in the evening, starting at 6 o'clock p.m., 6 to 8 p.m. at Summit Cove Elementary School. And it's going to be in the cafeteria.
Excellent.
So there will be refreshments provided, and it's going to be kind of an informal setting. Everyone can mingle around. I do believe we'll give one very brief presentation just to kind of give everybody the overview of the project that we'd like them to have at some point early on in the meeting, maybe around 6:30.
All right. And so we certainly encourage you all of you Summit Cove residents to get out there to that open house on December 10th at 6 p.m. But if you can't make it, you can still provide your feedback. Isn't that right, Kate?
Yes. So we have a project website, and we do have a link on there to provide input via email or snail mail to me.
What's that?
whatever your mode is that you want to submit comments, I'm accepting comments through the entire duration of the project. So if you can't make it to the open house, you can certainly email me your comments, and we'll be collecting all input that we receive from all the different means.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us and for all this great info. And we'll see you guys at the open house on the 10th. And thanks to those of you at home who have joined us for our holiday episode of County Connection. Happy holidays. We have Thanksgiving, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, New Year's all coming up. So hope you enjoy them all. And join us next month on County Connection.